Today we're reviewing Mother and Macy Talks, guys. Let's go.
Every single day I passed for 3, 4, sometimes 6 blocks, city blocks lined with people holding signs saying burn the witch.
Yeah, and that's what's so frightening is, and hence the name The Shallows, is that because of global warming, sharks are pushed closer to shore. And, she's attacked, and you think of a shark attack being in the deep ocean.
Hello, this is Macy. In many ways, the unfolding controversy around Blake Lively has prompted onlookers to recall the tumult that once surrounded Amber Heard. Both women came into the public eye with reputations for poise and self-assurance, only to find themselves at the center of legal storms that shook their images from within. While their respective circumstances are different in key details, the echoes of overlapping themes, public sympathy turned to skepticism, text message leaks, and attorneys stepping away have left people marveling at the wild similarities in how these two figures went from admired celebrities to polarizing questions.
These bitches are very similar, aren't they? Tell me what you guys think.
Those who followed Amber Heard's high-profile legal entanglements may find a striking parallel here. A once-celebrated actress embroiled in an ever-deepening maelstrom of stories, some of which raise serious doubts about the version of events initially presented. For Blake, the descent began with what should have been a promising venture, her involvement in the film adaptation of a popular novel titled It Ends With Us. Co-written and directed by Justin Baldoni, the project was meant to be an emotionally riveting film that explored nuanced relationships and challenging life transitions. From the outside, everything looked as though it was lining up perfectly. Blake's star power and warm public presence seemed poised to complement Justin's drive to produce heartfelt narratives. At first, this dynamic felt reminiscent of how Amber Heard, back in her early career days, appeared to mesh seamlessly with blockbuster projects. As fans tuned in, social media buzzed with anticipation, picturing Blake and Justin as a harmonious duo destined to create something genuinely moving. But almost as soon as production began, undercurrents of dissonance became impossible to ignore. Whispers circulated that Blake was frustrated by Justin's influence. Since he was not just the director, but also a co-writer and one of the lead actors, his creative authority inevitably shaped crucial aspects of the film's direction. In parallel, rumors took shape about possible disagreements over script changes, press events, and creative decisions. Onlookers were immediately reminded of the swirl that surrounded Amber Heard when she first went public with allegations that upended her established persona. The pattern of claiming mistreatment only for conflicting stories to surface has now been replayed with Blake. She alleged that Justin systematically leaked negative tidbits to tabloids in an effort to tarnish her reputation. Many fans were quick to empathize, recalling how female leads can be subjected to greater scrutiny and potential misrepresentation. However, the tide began to turn when screenshots of text messages surfaced, messages that seemed to present a different side of the story. In these messages, Blake reportedly referenced her husband, Ryan Reynolds, and other influential parties, calling them her dragons, and indicated that she could use these connections to shape post-production edits, promotional spots, and even the narrative the public would see. This subplot took on an eerie likeness to earlier controversies in Hollywood, including the Amber Heard saga, where a once-believed narrative was undermined by a second wave of communications that cast doubt on the original claims. The leaks surrounding Blake suggested that she was less a victim than a strategic operator, who was fully prepared to wield her influence behind the scenes. In the film world, subtle tensions can be amplified by the constant presence of the press. Amber Heard's past ordeal illustrated how interviews and soundbites can be dissected to the point where every raised eyebrow or fleeting pause is spun into a gotcha moment. The same pattern emerged with Blake. Some interview clips circulated where her compliments toward Justin seemed forced or abruptly pivoted to other topics, fueling talk that deeper friction was at play. Then came the moment that shifted the winds. Blake filed legal documents detailing on-set grievances, which included claims that protocols were insufficient during close contact scenes.
I mean, I internalized that as opportunity. We had such a responsibility to this audience to deliver something and to have the opportunity to deliver something for a passionate group of people.
Yes.
As someone who is so deeply passionate myself, I was so excited about that. I would so much rather have that than people who are indifferent.
Blasé.
Oh, you can already tell she about to take over his
And that Justin had commented on her postpartum appearance in a way she found insulting. If true, these remarks would indeed have cast Justin in a detrimental light, echoing the kind of allegations that have historically damaged other careers. Yet, just as happened in the Amber Heard situation, counter evidence rolled out. Justin's team released extended text logs that contradicted Blake's claims, particularly the one about an uninvited entry into her trailer, whereas Blake's curated messages implied he had barged in unannounced. The unedited version contained her lighthearted invitation. A once solid narrative was now fractured, and the resulting whiplash reminded observers of how contradictory pieces of testimony in incomplete evidence can transform a straightforward dispute into a public spectacle. In the Amber Heard case, opposing materials similarly caused a shift in how people weighed the legitimacy of her accusations, and it was precisely that second wave of evidence that made neutral observers realize the complexity was far deeper than the initial headlines implied. But in Blake's affair, one revelation superseded all others in terms of impact. Her own lawyer walked away from the case. The attorney, known for representing top-tier Hollywood personalities, didn't simply exit quietly. There was a public statement that cast doubt on Blake's credibility. Many drew parallels to instances where legal counsel parting with a star client can effectively crumble the foundation of that client's argument. It's a moment that resonates powerfully with the events that once haunted Amber Heard, in the sense that the unraveling became unstoppable once key figures in her camp appeared to waver in their confidence. Typically, legal representatives pride themselves on safeguarding their clients' interests. They seek negotiated deals, hush-hush settlements, or any number of tactical approaches to protect their client. So, when a lawyer not only resigns, but also implies that the client's statements do not match verifiable facts, it's akin to hitting a cultural tripwire. Whether focusing on the Heard saga or Lively's predicament, a publicly stated lack of trust from within the client's own circle sends shockwaves through media outlets and fan bases. Suddenly, the tide of sympathy that initially flowed toward Blake slowed considerably. Fans who were once eager to see her in the best possible light were forced to reconcile the attorney's blunt words with everything they believed about her. This dynamic, public perception whiplash is famously reminiscent of Amber Heard's turning point, when a series of contradictory testimonies and digital exchanges made it harder to sustain a single viewpoint. People who had reflexively defended Blake began to wonder if they had been manipulated by an orchestrated campaign, especially given that more text messages and behind-the-scenes comments further undermined her claims. At this juncture, Justin displayed a strategy that many felt put him in a favorable position. He chose transparency. His team unveiled the complete set of conversations, consistently invited independent analysis, and refrained from attacking Blake personally. While those who recalled the Heard Around the World Heard case might note that there were times information was released in a more confrontational manner, the overall strategy of letting documented facts speak for themselves shares a common thread. Once again, a swirling narrative about potential misdeeds gave way to a simpler reality. If you can produce full context that subverts key allegations, people will begin to question the motives of the accuser. It's a tactical move that resonates with audiences who are hungry for something authentic amidst the churn of gossip and rumor. As the dust began to settle, more people from the film's production started speaking out, offering mini reports about their experiences with Blake.
So it's a bit of a tough adjustment in our house, but it's good. I mean, I have two other daughters, so my oldest is very into the baby, but my middle child, not so much. But we're thinking of keeping her.
Does she like play with her? What does she think?
Well, she sort of like pretends to play with her. So like in the beginning, our oldest is like loving on her, and she's like very maternal, and then our middle daughter is just keeps away from her.
One production assistant mentioned how Blake had repeatedly pushed for extra takes under the auspices of artistic reasons, only to later reframe those same situations as an example of inadequate support on the set. Another staff member recalled how Blake's apparent friendship on certain days could unexpectedly pivot to strong criticism, leaving the crew perpetually uneasy. This seesaw of contradictory accounts bears a striking parallel to how, in the Amber Heard drama, some coworkers and acquaintances described a person who could alternate between affability and antagonism, each portrayal fueling a different corner of the rumor mill. In both cases, the most challenging aspect for neutral observers has been determining which incidents were truly problematic and which were normal on set or in relationship tensions inflated for broader strategic purposes. A separate matter that contributed to the swirling speculation involved Blake's husband, Ryan Reynolds. Much like individuals who supported or distanced themselves from Amber Heard during her legal confrontations, Ryan's stance became a topic of near obsessive interest for the tabloids. While he initially seemed to back his wife's claims, rumors began to swirl that after reading the complete text logs, he grew more cautious about supporting her public narrative. The speculation that he might be wavering in his stance bore eerie echoes of how close associates in other highly publicized disputes sometimes adopt a less visible presence, once new disclosures introduce ambiguity. Though neither Blake nor Ryan confirmed these rumors, observers were struck by how little he appeared at events connected to her ongoing projects after the rift with Justin came to light. All the while, Justin continued speaking about the importance of respectful interactions on set, particularly when the subject of postpartum comfort was raised. The uncut messages in which he double-checked Blake's ability to safely perform certain moves suggested genuine concern for her well-being rather than any ill intent or disrespect. This mirrored public perceptions around other Hollywood controversies, including Amber Heard's, where looking at the broader context of each conversation often reversed the initial impression. By focusing on the thoroughness of his records and calmly refuting one accusation after another, Justin placed himself in a position reminiscent of those who, in the Heard saga, relied on consistent documentation to challenge claims they argued were out of context or incomplete. Then came the situation with producer Jamie Heath, who found himself linked to a private video he shared to illustrate the emotional extremes of childbirth. According to him, he explained the clip in advance and asked Blake if she was open to viewing it, yet Blake's subsequent characterization suggested she was blindsided and deeply disturbed. This style of reinterpretation similarly echoes certain episodes in The Heard Matter, where the presentation of events diverged so sharply that it became a puzzle for the public to piece together. By the time more of Jamie's perspective emerged, the sense of trust in Blake's version was eroding.
I think the idea that people think that they know you, I think because of how intrusive media is these days, people care so much more about your personal life than they do your work, and if you aren't open with your personal life, then they just make it up for you and share it for you.
A pattern was taking shape. From trailer entries to postpartum considerations and even the sharing of footage, every incident had two versions. The more unfiltered material circulated, the more cracks appeared in Blake's account. Still, the single most incendiary twist remained the lawyer's departure. Hollywood watchers often remark that it is a scenario rarely witnessed. A well-regarded attorney effectively saying, "I can't stand by my client's story." From a broader vantage, this resonates strongly with the unpredictability that hovered over Amber Heard's public battles. The moment a critical figure in one's entourage steps away, it changes the tenor of the entire situation. The focus shifts from whether the other side might be exaggerating or misrepresenting facts to whether the client's narrative might be internally flawed. With a large segment of the public, this development was the catalyst for rethinking everything they had heard from Blake's side. While emotional attachments to beloved actors can be fierce, the knowledge that a top-tier lawyer felt compelled to make such a pronouncement was, for many, a decisive blow to Blake's credibility. Consequently, studios and producers have grown wary. Much like how certain doors reportedly closed for Amber Heard once her controversies escalated, the same cooling-off period has seemingly begun for Blake. Negotiations for future roles are now on pause, with production teams hesitant to engage with a star whose behind-the-scenes dealings could prove divisive. The parallels become especially pronounced when considering how a single personality clash can snowball into a chain reaction, leaving everyone from makeup artists to executive producers eager to step back. Moreover, many professionals in the industry worry that if even half of the allegations about manipulative messages and threats of retaliation are accurate, they could find themselves entangled in a similar fiasco if they dare to cross Blake's wishes. Fans who remain loyal to her have pointed out that Hollywood can be a tough environment for women, and they caution that the truth might be more nuanced than it seems. In the Heard controversies, a comparable stance was taken by supporters who believe that the complexities of an industry rife with precarious power dynamics can obscure who is genuinely at fault. But as the months dragged on, the volume of conflicting evidence took its toll on that stance, leaving many who once defended Blake or Heard to question where the facts truly lie. That is not to say either actress was uniformly condemned or supported. Both women still command devoted followings, but the general atmosphere is one of uncertainty and doubt, which inevitably affects career prospects. At this moment, nobody can predict precisely how Blake might respond to the predicament. Amber Heard's path was long, involving multiple legal steps, public appearances, and shifting sentiments. Blake could attempt a similar route, perhaps staging a televised conversation, offering a mea culpa, or attributing the entire situation to poor advice. However, such a maneuver would require finessing a tricky line. If she denies all wrongdoing outright, the existing trove of contradictory material might overshadow her attempts at restoration. If she admits to certain exaggerations but attempts to place blame elsewhere, the negative press could intensify. The crux here, as it was in the Heard matter, is the challenge of regaining control once the public has witnessed so many conflicting facets of the story. For Justin, the parallel to individuals who are embroiled on the opposing side of the Amber Heard drama stands out. His approach is measured, focusing on letting objective data speak, and it appears to be working. With each new release of text messages or production testimony, the viewpoint that he was unfairly castigated gains traction. At some point, even those who initially viewed him with suspicion, believing perhaps that he undermined Blake, have started to admit that the weight of the evidence is leaning in his favor. While few can determine the absolute truth of personal conversations and behind-the-scenes disagreements, there's a sense that his calm consistency has paid off in much the same way that documented receipts shaped other high-profile Hollywood disputes.
It's believing that people and humanity are inherently good, and they crave nutritious food in their soul, just as they do in their bodies.
On top of it all, the entertainment world has a long memory for dramatic showdowns, and the wave of social media commentary has already anointed the entire Blake Lively fiasco as an echo of the uproar that once circled Amber Heard. Both narratives hinge on a star who was initially seen as confident, talented, and likable, but whose personal battles escalated to the point of overshadowing professional accomplishments. In each case, attorneys played pivotal roles, communications were dissected line by line, and public sympathy twisted back and forth depending on the latest revelations. The social media environment has only intensified these oscillations, with hashtags and threads acting as forums for every scrap of information, whether confirmed or speculative. Even though the two women's circumstances diverge in crucial aspects, such as the central conflict, the individuals involved, and the chain of events, the structural arc of the controversies invites comparison. Fans of both actresses have felt torn, some contending that these stars are easy targets for sensational headlines, others concluding that the stars themselves cultivated confusion for personal advantage. Friends and former co-workers find themselves in precarious positions. Do they remain quiet to avoid fallout, or do they speak their truths, risking blowback if their testimonies contradict a powerful figure's statements? For the time being, the future remains wide open. As new twists emerge, further text leaks, surprising witness accounts, or potential reconciliations, either party could experience a shift in public favor. Perhaps Blake might present convincing evidence that places Justin's role in a new light. Or maybe a third party will come forward with definitive data that validates or refutes certain claims. Regardless, the outcome will become a yardstick for how swiftly one's glamorous persona can unravel in the face of unimpeachable evidence. That very speed was shocking to those who followed Amber Heard's path, which accelerated when contradictory materials were brought to light, igniting a media storm that refused to subside. In that sense, Blake's current entanglement stands as an emblematic reflection of how these controversies can play out in modern Hollywood. The attorney's exit is likely to be studied in legal circles for years. The texts, interviews, and behind-the-scenes accounts could well serve as a cautionary study for any actor stepping onto a set unprepared for the ramifications of saying one thing in private and another in public. Echoing the swirl that once defined Amber Heard's reality, Blake's predicament highlights the difficulties of sustaining a single, coherent narrative when digital footprints and legal scrutiny can bring every last detail to the surface. For now, the entire dispute continues to fuel chatter as commentators, fans, and other industry players speculate about the fallout. Will Blake reconcile with Justin and the production in an effort to save face? Will new revelations prompt a deeper inquiry into the role she played in shaping the public storyline? Or will she step away from the spotlight for a time, hoping the controversy will simmer down? In truth, the resolution remains uncertain. Yet, no matter how the story concludes, the parallels to Amber Heard's experience loom large. Both sagas shine a bright light on what happens when seemingly straightforward Hollywood conflicts explode into full-blown public reckonings, leaving even longtime loyalists scratching their heads over who to believe and how they could have missed the signs of trouble. These are the wild similarities of Amber Heard and Blake Lively, two celebrated women in film who forged successful careers, then found themselves at the center of storms, with high stakes and countless onlookers keen to weigh in. Both sagas underscore the fragile tightrope stars walk between carefully curated public images and the messy realities that can sometimes surface behind the scenes. The question now is whether the lessons gleaned from one can guide the other to a more measured outcome, or whether Hollywood is doomed to see such dramas repeated whenever private disputes slip into the public domain. If the rumor mill continues churning at its current pace, we may soon find out. And for all who have watched these surprising twists unfold, the parallels are difficult to overlook. Each scenario stands as a potent reminder that a reputation, no matter how solid it appears, can unravel with dizzying speed once messages and testimonies begin to paint a different portrait.